Hi, I'm Cheryl Radomski. I work in customer service at Easy Pro Pond Products.
I'm Sal Adams. I work here at Easy Pro and I do technical support, special quotes, and customer service. Tell me, Cheryl, if you had to give someone a quick answer, which filter do people usually end up getting?
For a small water garden, usually a waterfall filter.
What about if they've got like a koi pond or something like that, real decorative, small?
Well, if you're getting into koi ponds, people like to have a little bit more filtration because they tend to be kind of mucky fish. So the bead filters are what we often recommend for those. Small decorative water gardens that don't have any fish, they're just kind of plants and flowing water. You just get into the little all-in-one filters, work well. Just when you start getting fish loads in there, you got to up your filtration. However, when you're getting into the really big recreational and swim ponds, a little bead filter and waterfall filter isn't going to do it, is it?
That's not quite going to do it for you. When you get on those bigger ones like that, you're looking at wetland filtration systems. It's going to be a separate, like a pond, but it's not. It's a dugout area that's going to have bog filters and a whole cube system in there, and there's going to be a lot of filtration going through those, so they're a lot larger scale and they do much more filtration. So what does a pond filter actually do?
A couple of things. You're taking out the particulates in the water, so it's helping to clean the water, but it's also giving surface area for your beneficial bacteria to grow on. And the beneficial bacteria is what's cleaning up the nutrients that feed your algae and weed growth.
Yeah, those are some of the biggest nuisances you're going to deal with in these ponds too, so that's good. It's good stuff. Do you think every pond needs filtration?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Anything that doesn't filter is going to just get dirty pretty quick. If you don't have something taking those particulates out and the nutrients, it's just going to turn into a swamp.
So, Cheryl, there's going to be a few different types of filtration, of course. Can you tell me a little bit about the differences between mechanical filtration, biological filtration, and even UV clarification, the sterilizers?
Mechanical filtration is taking the particulates out. It's usually using something like a filter pad, either a polyester pad or the Metallic pad, and it's literally grabbing the particles out of the water. Biological filtration tends to be some type of a filter media that has a lot of surface area in it that bacteria can grow on. And the more surface area you have, the more bacteria will grow and the better biological filtration you'll get. UV light doesn't really filter. The UV light kills about 70% of the microorganisms that pass by it. So if you have a lot of problems with green water, it's going to kill that green water.
Yeah, sure.
But it doesn't take care of string algae, only what goes by the light.
Cheryl, you remember the chart from the beginning.
Yep.
What are the biggest things that you should consider when you're choosing a pond filter? Are you looking at, are you just looking at size of the pond? Are you considering other things like, fish, environmental things?
Definitely, yeah. Size of the pond is important. If you're putting fish in there, you want to oversize your filter because they add their own nutrients to the pond. So you want to have something that's going to take those nutrients out better. Is there anything else I'm missing that I'm not thinking of?
Well, you could consider a couple of different items. I think immediately something that comes to mind is like if you've got waterfalls or things like that, just kind of like we've got back here. That can change things up a little bit. Your budget oftentimes is a big concern. You don't want to dive deep into those huge projects if you don't have the budget for them. You got to be careful with that. And so there's going to be different filtration types that are going to fit the budget a little bit better. A skimmer box might be a little bit more affordable than going super big with wetland filter, for example. We talked about different types of ponds, right? Smaller ponds and koi ponds, and then swim ponds and things like that. When you get talking about those, there's going to be a difference in which filtration you're getting for each one. So let's talk about small backyard ponds. We can start with those. We do a lot of those, koi ponds, things like that. What do you think the best type of filtration is in a setting where you've got a small backyard pond?
Well, a lot of times people will go out and they'll get those pre-formed liners, and there's not room on those to put a filtration in, and they don't hold a lot of water, but they still want the pond to look nice. We have our little EcoClear all-in-one filter system. It includes a canister filter and includes a little pump, and we also have one that is actually a filter pump combination that sits right in the pond. It has a UV light in it, and that could take care of a pond up to about 1,000 gallons. That is exactly what I'm talking about, Bill. Okay. You got your biological filtration, 2 different types in here. Then we have our mechanical filtration, which is taking out the particulates, this one and this one. Here's the UV light that's going to take care of your green water, and this is the pump that runs the whole thing. And then we have the nozzles that go onto that if you like to put a little fountain nozzle spray on there. And it's a nice handy little package that you just set in your pond and you plug in and you're good to go.
Tell me, Cheryl, when should someone choose a waterfall filter?
Well, you're looking for a more natural look to your pond, and you're going to be putting maybe a stream in, but waterfall filters, they blend into the landscape and they make a really beautiful addition to the pond, as well as doing the important mechanical and biological filtration.
Yeah, those units are really neat, and me personally, I love a good looking stream. So
They also do pretty good right at the edge if you're just going to have the water pouring back in. So, but they're easy to tuck into the landscape and hide.
Talked a little bit about pressurized filters and things like that. What's the advantage to using a pressurized filter?
It's just a different type of filtration. You're not getting your hands wet, you're not getting into the waterfall boxes and pulling out wet filter material.
Gives the plug and go appeal,
Yeah.
right?
And the other advantage of the bead filters or the pressurized filters is they can be set away from the pond and tucked off to the side so they're not in view. So,
Yeah.
and you know, some people even build little sheds and stuff for them so they can just hide everything away and make it look more natural, but they have the higher end filtration at the same time.
Yeah, being able to tuck it away and not have it a huge eyesore right out in the middle of your yard that's certainly an advantage that those can offer.
True.
I know myself, I don't want this big unit just sticking out like a sore thumb, you know what I mean?
Just doesn't add to the natural beauty of the pond,
Yeah,
that's
it might
for sure.
take away from things a little bit anyhow. So what's a canister filter best used for?
I would say that's more the economical filtration options for a pond. If you don't have the room or the budget to be putting in a waterfall box, the mechanical canister filters are a good choice to go with too. And most of them can be buried up to the control head if you want to hide it underneath an imitation rock cover or something.
Oh, that's
But,
neat.
yeah. You can also retrofit the pressurized filter so you're not having to add things to the liner and cut the liner.
I'm not a big fan of cutting liners, so.
No, there's so many things out there that'll do that for you.
Yeah, I've had my battles with liner. No, thank you.
Tell me more about the wetland filters. What's the big deal on those?
Well, the wetland filters, really, there's a few different scenes that you would see them, but when you need big time filtration on a really big pond, you know, a lot of the bigger filtration systems we have, they can only handle so much water, or they're only going to be able to filter so much water. So when you start getting to really big ponds, you know, 10, 20, 30,000 gallons and larger, you're going to want to have a bigger capability as far as how much filtration can go on. So
That's true.
we do a lot of wetland filtration when it comes to swim ponds and you know, situations like that, and those really large scale ponds. It's really the most cost effective and efficient way, I think, to filter things.
That blends right into the landscape nicely too, doesn't it?
It sure does. Being able to do something like that and really hide the filtration, gosh, that's a super big advantage.
True. An exciting new product with our wetland filtration, don't we?
Yeah, gosh, it sure would be a shame if we didn't talk about the Pit Viper 2.0. So we've got a new Pit Viper 2.0 system. It allows for a little bit of money savings, right, in the long run with the wetland filtration.
Less parts
That's
compared
right.
to the older ones.
Less parts, you know, your total product that's going to be involved is going to drop a little bit. And boy, these suckers, they hold weight and they do a really good job. Just to make it short and sweet, you know, there's cubes that are on the bottom layer of your filtration. We'll call it a secondary pond almost a little bit. It gets covered, but through the middle of those, depending on, you know, how wide they are, you've got this Pit Viper system running through it. Pumps push the water through there, and it really allows the filtration to come up through, and boy, they do a really
Those
good
bog
job.
cubes on top.
Yep. So we've saved quite a bit of space, making them a little bit smaller.
And cut down on the number of fittings required to put them all together.
Absolutely.
Now, is a skimmer considered a filter? Because I've had customers call and ask about, or mention that their skimmer is their filter, but technically we don't necessarily consider them filters, but
Yeah, technically, I guess it's not considered a filter per se, but there's absolutely filtration that goes on through the skimmer, right? So these right here, filter brushes, you can find these in some of our skimmer boxes. What's going to happen is, you know, the water's going to come through, it's going to filter through these brushes as so, right? And is really going to get a good opportunity to collect some of the solids that are in the water column You know, another thing that
Oh.
you find a lot of times in those is going to be these here filter pads. So we've got different filter pads that are going to exist out there. They're, I don't know if you can see this there in the camera, but they're different densities, right? Some of them are more coarse and allow a little bit more solids, I guess, through or flow through. Some of them are going to be a little bit less coarse, and you know, being able to choose which one of these is going to be dependent on what you're dealing with oftentimes.
So basically the skimmer is doing mechanical filtration
Absolutely.
and is protecting the pump from debris that might clog it up.
Heck yeah, a lot of these pumps, they don't like eating up debris, and so some of the best way to do that is getting that little bit of extra filtration through your filter brushes and through your pads.
And through the net that catches the big leaves and stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Protects the pump, but takes out the big stuff.
Tell me, Cheryl, do you think every single pond needs to have UV?
So UV is kind of a band-aid. People who have chronic problems with green water and they can't do anything they do doesn't seem to fix it, UV lights will help because it will kill that planktonic algae in the water column. So on that side it's good. Bad side though is if you've got a chronic problem with planktonic algae, it's because there's something in the pond that's feeding it. So
That's
if
right.
you take the planktonic algae out, now your filamentous algae has no competition. So
Yeah.
it can start growing too. So if you want to use a UV light in conjunction with your filtration, fantastic. But I wouldn't expect a UV light to filter your pond.
It's not the end all be all.
No.
It is not the end all be all. It is
It's just
absolutely.
another tool in the tool chest there
That's
for
absolutely
helping
right.
to keep your pond clean.
Oftentimes you're going to see that we do combine filtration types, you know, using mechanical and biological, or you know, UV with mechanical. How often do you think we do that? Do we try to do it every time?
It really depends on the pond. It certainly doesn't hurt to combine them together. You cannot overfilter a pond. But for the most part, we size up the filtration depending on the pond.
I absolutely think that we're going to use it in terms of like a koi pond. You want to
Yeah.
double up, right?
And we've got our skid mount filtration system, which is a nice plug and play. It incorporates our bead filter, our UV light, and the pump right in one nice fancy skid, and you just hook your plumbing up and you're good to go. And like you mentioned earlier, you can offset it from the pond and hide it inside a building or put it behind some plants to hide it, and it does a great job. If a customer's still not sure about what kind of filter they need for their pond, what do you suggest?
It's the best question we've had yet. The easiest answer to that is just to give us a jingle here at Easy Pro. We have got trained professionals who know what they're talking about. They're eager and excited to help you out. And when you give us a call, you're gonna get real people. You don't have to deal with all the automated nonsense. You're gonna get somebody that cares, somebody that loves their job, and somebody that just wants to help you out. We'll get you pointed in the right direction with quality products.
All right,
job,
start
guys.
throwing.
You gonna throw stuff at me? I didn't bring my muck boots today. Sorry. I'd have done that if so.
What?
Whatever.
We need to.
All right. Yeah.
Good idea, Sal. The whole rack or just one?
Throw the whole rack at me.
I have no idea.
I said you're gonna get real people to talk about filter pads. He about took Cheryl out.
Let's do another one.